It definitely would be. All right, brief break for Conor Mack. We move on to the next game here, Georgia Tech and Ole Miss. Ole Miss 20-point home favorites in this one, 63 being the total in this game. I'm telling you what, that was not overly impressive from Ole Miss, knowing Tulane had to go to a backup quarterback in Kai Horton with the late scratch to Michael Pratt, and it took them forever to get going on offense. I mean, Jackson Dart and the Rebels struggled for a long part of that game. And finally, they wore down Tulane because I think the offense was they just stopped moving the football, and it was a struggle without clearly their top quarterback. And Ole Miss took control, and they ended up winning by 17. But that was much more of a struggle than I think a lot of people would have thought for Ole Miss. The question we have to ask ourselves is, how good is Georgia Tech? I saw a lot of things to like in that first game of the season for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets against Louisville. I know they lost 39-34, but, offensively, it's actually a good thing after what we've seen from Jeff Sims at Nebraska that he's out of there. Haynes King has certainly been a lot more effective than Jeff Sims was at the quarterback spot. They put 34 points on the board. I think the defense is still a work in progress, and I certainly think this game might go over the total, 63. I could see some points scored in this game. I'm not comfortable laying this many just yet with Ole Miss. You are talking about a Georgia Tech team that did cover the number in defeat against Louisville, and we're leading for a good portion of that game. And I think Brent Key, the head coach here of this Georgia Tech team, I think he's eventually going to get things going in the right direction. I think he's finally, it's been a disastrous few years for Georgia Tech, but I do think there's some hope for this program. And look, their one game against an FBS opponent this year, they covered the number. And let's not forget how good Georgia Tech was against the spread last year after they made the coaching change. Down the stretch, at Georgia, they covered in defeat. At North Carolina, they won outright as 22-point dogs. At Virginia Tech, they won outright as underdogs. This team started to play some much better. Pittsburgh outright win as 21.5-point dogs late last year. This team really did start to play better down the stretch here at Georgia Tech. They covered in defeat against Louisville. To me, this is too many points to feel comfortable with Ole Miss. I'm leaning Tech as well as the over here. Connor, what do you think? Georgia Tech, Ole Miss.
Yeah, I agree with you a little bit. Ole Miss is going to get theirs. You were just talking about, and I have to say, Pratt's in. I think that game was going to be in the high 30s and be within a touchdown, right around there. I mean, Ole Miss did get theirs, obviously.
I mean, that game was right there for Tulane for 3 quarters until the defense got gassed, and that was that. Yep.
Exactly. And I think Pratt could have made, a few plays. And it's not always great. Of course, your team, you go in, but when your quarterback, it's just, he's going to be out like that. So, yeah, I still have problems with Ole Miss and that defense. So I think Georgia Tech could maybe hang around. They've taken a few steps in the right direction, and they'll give it up. But I think they can score here and maybe stay within the number.